Hey, this is a video for an LB7. What I'm going to try to do today is give you some tips and some requirements, or the minimum requirements, in order to be able to get a CP3 out of this machine. This is my CP3. I'll talk about that more in detail in a little bit. A couple tips that I found on YouTube you might want to take note of. One is that I flattened my tires down, took all the air out so that it's a little bit easier to reach over and get into this thing. The other thing is that I moved the bolt back from here to here, and that allows me to get this hood up in an almost vertical position, so it's up and out of the way, which was useful for me because when I took my CP3 out, I actually had my feet on the left bank, right bank, and was reaching over in this thing with my head over it in order to pull this thing out, which moving that hood up made it a whole lot easier. So anyway, let me get the light down here. This is the valley. This down here is where it comes from, back behind this Y bridge. There are some, sometimes you might find some insulation back in there. That actually is not intended, and what I found in mine, and which I saw in another video, he didn't know what it was for either. But the reason that that is there is because you might have a mouse that has relocated it for you from the back wall. For example, right there, you'll see it came from there. He also took a little bits out across the top there, took out a chunk over here, and took a little chunk back in there. So all that got relocated into the valley. I went ahead and vacuumed mine out and has removed it. Now, the other part, what I want to do is talk about, again, the minimum amount of work in order to get this thing out. You will see that I took this bridge out and have left the studs in. Those stay in place. It's actually very easy to take it out. Once you get the bolts out and you get the nuts loosened up over here, it pretty much pulls up and out of the way, which is going to be useful, because what you're going to do is you're going to have to orient and work with that CP3 in order to get it out of this valley here, and it's pretty tricky. You're going to have to take an extra dose of patience in order to get it out, because when it comes out it will be about 20 pounds. I could not use anything but one hand in order to maneuver it, and so that kind of gets frustrating. And then when it gets moved, sometimes it jams and you have to kind of put it back in place. Now, in order to get it out, what I found is that for me, I had to take the back end here, and this had to come out first. So what I did was, once I moved it straight back, you can have to move it straight back until it's loose. You cannot twist, you cannot move it, because it will bind and not come out. So it has to be moved straight back, and then once it moves straight back, then what I did was I tilted it up like this, and the back end came up and out first. That was the way that I was able to get mine out. So you'll see that the Y bridge here is still in place. It's bolted, has not been moved. The AC bracket does not have to be unbolted or removed. The steering pump does not have to be touched. The fan doesn't have to be touched. All of those things are not required in order for you to get the CP3 out. I ended up taking the alternator bracket, and I thought I was going to have to remove it, but I took the 4 bolts out that hold that in place, and now it actually kind of rotates, if you want to call it that, but it stays in place. You may have to take that out for purposes other than CP3, like if you have to do anything with a return line or anything else like that, or some of these things that are in place. But for the CP3, you do not have to take it out. So let me see if I can orient this, get this down here. Now let me show you where the 4 bolts are that have to be removed in order for the CP3 to be able to be moved back out of place. First of all, there is the left-hand side over here. This is where the oil fill tube is and the bolt that holds it in place. I don't believe I had to remove that. I thought I did, but if you can get your wrenches and ratchets and stuff in there, then you should not have to remove it. So the lower bolt is there. Then there is an upper bolt right above it, which has to be removed. This bolt over here, which is behind the tube, does not have to be removed. All right? So, and then on the other side of this thing, you've got the two bolts. You can see there's the lower bolt here and the upper bolt over here. This bolt, which is close to the Y, does not have to be removed. So again, those are the other two bolts. This tube, you'll probably put your ratchet and extension underneath that, and then you'll be able to get that out. So, and those are the 4 bolts in order to get those things out. This is what the CP3 looks like after it's been taken out. So this is actually my CP3 after it's been refurbished by the shop. So the bolts that hold it in are going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's it. The other tricky part, if you want to call it that, is that there's a seal along here, and if you don't pull that out straight, it will bind up, and you'll think that you might have another bolt that needs to be removed. So that's what it actually looks like. When you remove it, of course, this is going to be your fuel regulator. These here, the shop has put these plugs in, which is where the other hardware goes. There's another connection that goes in there. So anyway, that is what you need to look for, and you'll see that they are kind of angled a little bit, if you want to call it downward this way, downward that way, just like you saw in the other shot.